all waiting for to start attacking life, waiting for the stars to align. Been working out hard in the gym for a month. So we down in poopy pants. You studied for 30 minutes for a test, and you didn't do as well as you thought. What the do you expect?
So yeah, you guys know David Goggins as the guy that is telling you to get up, run, you're too lazy, you need to go to the gym, and has a inspirational story of losing a ton of weight to go from not being very fit to walking every day for every meal to now being a former Navy SEAL and publishing books and things like that. But it appears some of his personal life has slipped through the cracks as his daughter is pretty much bashing him on social media, and she made this TikTok to kind of talk about it. And she says below that, "Mama, I'm chasing a ghost. Hashtag 10 years, silent too long, daddy issues, done being quiet, done with the lies." And this is her post over on TikTok. And this is her only post, by the way, on her entire thing. But it looks like she probably had other people previously following her. Now, it should be noted that some of this is no secret, you know, from the past that has been discussed, as David Goggins went on an interview and kind of was transparent about his issues with his family and not being really in line with some of his earlier choices in life.
Have you considered what you would be like as a father?
I actually have a daughter right now. Yeah.
No way, I didn't know.
Yeah. I have a daughter right now. But that being said, I'm an open and honest person. So I had a kid at a young age when I was in the worst possible place in my life. So when you're in a bad place, you're going to meet a person that's very similar to who you are at that time. And then you bring a child into this world. And as you start to move up in this world and get better, and you realize I need to get better, you try to pull that person along with you. A lot of times they don't want to come where you're going. And it creates a bad environment. So that's what that is right now. My daughter's 21 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that.
And so, by the way, that was posted back in 2023 December timeframe, and people already had negative thoughts about him, but this stuff is still coming up. But some of the comments on that were kind of sentimental of what we're even seeing today. For example, the top comment is, "So he abandoned his daughter." The next one, "So he abandoned his daughter." The next one, "I read his book and I immediately disagreed with him in his book after he left his wife. My instincts say he was abusive." So this has been a huge divide, as there are several people that have come out saying like they were not expecting this from David Goggins because it's like full committal to fitness, to all these other things that are out there. And they are kind of bashing David Goggins and hopping on this train even 2 years later after finding this. But it wasn't until his daughter did post this.
Finding out David Goggins is a deadbeat dad was definitely not on my bingo cards. Last night, his alleged daughter posted that pretty much he's not in her life. And I say alleged, but like she posts pictures of the two of them together and insinuates that he's not in her life. And it's really sad because it makes you remember that these motivational people and these people that are on the internet and have done such great things are also just people themselves too. And I'm not excusing what he did or does, but it reminds people not to put people on such a high pedestal because they're human too. And I saw a comment on the post that was interesting. A lady said that she always speculated it was something like that with him because you can't be so devout to something in life without giving something up. I just found that interesting. But yeah, I hope they can reconcile the relationship and he can come out and just basically, you know, be a better parent and just own up to what has gone on. And that's what I expect him to do because that's what he always has represented. But yeah, it's pretty sad, but I wasn't expecting that at all.
So that was a pretty balanced view of this entire thing, but somebody comes on the other side of this and they're like, but he's never talked about being a father as his messaging that he sent out.
I saw a video about David Goggins and how he was a deadbeat father. And she was talking about how we should not listen to him, not take his advice. And I'm trying to figure out when he gave parental advice. That dude screams fitness, motivation, etc. I don't understand why we put people on such high pedestals and how we feel like they have to be perfect. No one's perfect. The dude will dead ass fucking motivate you in the gym, 100%. But he's never once made a video on how to be a better parent. I don't understand why people want people to be perfect. It's crazy, man.
Now, I do have to show this because this video was the last one I saw that is kind of from the feminist side of the house, where it's interesting, but it has the most traction. And I will explain statistics and things and mindsets from the military perspective of why I think this is not really that big of a deal and should have maybe been understood by a lot of different parties, but we'll get into that.
David Goggins being a deadbeat father is why I always encourage women to take advice from men with a grain of salt. Somebody else is managing half of their responsibilities for them. Like David Goggins, if you're not doing this, if you're not doing that, then you're lazy, you're this, you're that. Someone raised his kids for him. He was a deadbeat father. Like, that's why he can devote all the time that he wants to fitness, because somebody else is doing his responsibilities for him. All these CEOs and upper executives who give all this advice about how to dedicate all your time and how to be a hard worker, they all have wives who watch their children for them, who cook all their meals for them, who pack their lunch for them. Like, you guys cannot listen to these men for advice. Get a female mentor, because these men have a woman at home who is doing the majority of their responsibilities for them. If these men actually had to take care of their families and be present, they would be singing a different tune.
And a lot of people had thoughts on that post, and they say this. Claire Adactyl says, finally, David Goggins hate, and I'm here for it. My ex was obsessed with him, and I instantly couldn't stand him. And Starlit Knight says, so the fastest run he ever did was from his responsibilities. And then lastly, just Ryan Archuleta says, David Goggins ditched his kids so he could go running. I have a lot of thoughts about this because I went to his book, and he wrote 2 different books. He wrote the Never Finished book, and then he also wrote this book, Can't Hurt Me, Master Your Mind, and Defy the Odds. Now, this kind of goes through the story of this and is really the only talking point that we have from David Goggins to initiate or, give his side of the story from his own recollection, even though he had people help him write this book. But this is what he had to say. This excerpt says, Pam went home to share the news with her parents. I walked her to the door of my mother's place, then slumped into the couch. In Coronado, I felt like I'd come to terms with my effed up past and found some power there. And here I was, sucked under once again. Now it wasn't just about me and my dreams of becoming a SEAL. I had a family to think about, which raised the stakes that much higher. If I failed this time, it wouldn't mean that I was just going back to ground zero emotionally and financially, but I would be bringing my new family there with me. When my mother got home, I told her everything, and as we talked, the dam broke and my fear, sadness, and struggle came bursting out of me. I put my head in my hands and sobbed. Mom, my life from the time I was born until now has been a nightmare that keeps getting worse. I said, the harder I try, the harder life becomes. And she said, I can't argue with that, David. She said, my mom knew hell and she wasn't trying to baby me. She never had. But I also know you well enough to know you will find a way to get through this. And said, I have to. I said, as I wiped tears from my eyes, I don't have a choice. So that's some of his recollection. He does talk about how they were living in Chula Vista, California, where essentially they lived in a tiny studio that was only a couple $100 and took out a massive loan for a Honda SUV to try and make things work for his family. And he was going through health issues because Navy SEAL training is just that hard. And he would be washed out and have to restart something entirely over, or continue his commitment to this path that he'd already established and try and make it through with several broken bones, things like that, that he has said in his book. Now, I do want to say, wow, this entire process is like he was married while going to Navy SEAL training. There is unfortunately a lot of divorce in the military. Secondly, you throw Navy SEAL on that, it's going to go up. And I did a little statistical thing here, and even Jake Zweig, a fellow military content creator on this platform, tells anyone trying to become a SEAL not to become one because the divorce rate's so high.
And do not get married in the Special Forces. Do not go into the Special Forces married, because you're going to get a divorce. Whatever you do, do not allow your wife to be involved at all with the community, i.e., other bad dudes that are going to smash your wife. We've already talked about that in another video. I'll put it in the description, okay? Yeah. But the bigger cataclysmic thing that I've seen is her being involved with the other wives on the team, the other Green Beret wives, the other Navy SEAL wives, because she's going to hear the horror story. The problem is she's going to get stinking thinking from this group of females because half of them are going to get a divorce. A quarter of them are going to get a divorce. So now she's like, oh, my husband's out there doing it. You got all this doubt that's coming in.
If you're already married, do not go to SEAL training because you will most likely get a divorce. AI has looked at this. They say the figures are around 90%. So that means you have a 1 in 10 shot possibly with so many different things between relocations, between time away from family, between the obligations to be at your job. The level of commitment is insane. Now, that is for the marriage. Let's talk about the daughter because that is a factor that she was born into this, right? But going back to the daughter here, I want to say there are a couple things we can take away. We only get one post. There's a lot of layers to this. There are years of things that are there. And unfortunately, being a SEAL, doing that is one of the most selfish things you could do. Every SEAL will tell you that. If you listen to DJ Shipley talk about it on the Sean Ryan podcast, it's like every second of his life, he had a phone next to him and he was ready for any call to go. Now, not every SEAL is to that extreme, but it is expected. You have to be a certain level of crazy, a certain level of selfish, and a certain level of just not right in the brain to go into that realm. Decided to have a baby, and do that. And even David Goggins took on a stepchild during this process, during his book that he talks about it. So I think a lot of people are looking at this one-sided, and that's not just me trying to defend David Goggins. I just think there is cultural relevance here. There is occupational and all these other military things that really come into play that I think my audience will understand and get what it means to go deploy for how many months, even if you're not a Navy SEAL. That is a huge ask, and a lot of people go through a lot of things. And it's one reason why I personally don't have any children, is because I knew I did not want to put a kid through that. It's hard. It sucks. But there are people that do it. There are kids that are out there that brag about being a military brat and all these other things and living here, there, and everywhere. There's a lot of nuance to this that I don't think it's all bad, and I don't know her story, but I will keep tabs on it if this does kind of come up in the future and I see other stuff come out. But I wanted to talk about the commitment and what is required of military service, and I'd love to know what you guys think about all of these aspects that we've seen here talking about David Goggins.